open. Two movie reviews for the 2022 specials. Not much to say really. I haven't really managed to, do a whole series actually for a while, but specials. So 2022 specials, fair enough. So I think only extra special things about I'm talking about 13 movies on here. So there we go. So that'll be interesting to do, and we'll see where it goes from there. Really, so I picked up 13 movies which I watched recently on DVD actually. I've got the DVDs right here, so yeah, that'll be interesting to talk about. Roughly, you're talking between 1980 and 2019, roughly, in a way. What films I've seen actually in between that time, really. I will be doing another special at some point. I will, so get around to it. So 13 movies I've saw quite a few times as well, and yeah, let's do this. So first up, we start with movie number one, and this is from 1980, and this is Saturn III. So this is directed by Stanley Donen, Donham, Stanley Donen, don't really know actually. Where's it say on him? Stanley Donen, really. 1980, Kirk Douglas, Farrah Fawcett, Harvey Keitel, Ed Bishop's in this as well. Sci-fi film from 1980, to do with what was it, like a couple on a colony in the far, in the very far future, away from Earth, really, and they are welcomed by this traveller who's basically like this criminal with a robot, really, played by Harvey Keitel, and builds it up in the lab, really, in the sort of complex that they're staying in, and it starts, he programs it to basically murder who else is on. Well, there's only two people on, which is Kirk Douglas and Farrah Fawcett, really, and ends up, tries to hunt them down, really. I think only because with Keitel's character, he has the affections for Farrah Fawcett, really, in this film. Her character's name is Alex. Adam by Kirk Douglas is rid of the back here, really, because it's been a little bit since it's in the film, really. But yeah, so it's basically like this little run around. It's basically it's like, think of Alien, really, but it's got a robot. It's a very small cast, very tiny cast. It only focuses on 3 cast members, really, just them 3, and it's very short. Filmed in 1979, very early 79 actually. Like you're talking like late January, February 79, really. There was something about with I think Farrah Fawcett mentioned about different scripts were being whatever, and sort of changing, costumes were changing, that sort of thing, and a bit of a weird thing, really. But yeah. Another major thing about this film, of course, is Harvey Keitel is dubbed over. This is interesting. I don't know I forgot the guy's name, really. But he was dubbed over by somebody else for like a threatening pose, really. Because he's meant to be intimidated. His character's meant to be intimidated and threatening, that type of thing, really. But he didn't want to do any ADR or something like that. Post-production stuff. He refused, so they brought someone else in just to overdub his voice, really. So that's weird. That's actually, but I just found that out very recently, actually. I think just a couple of days ago, when I was just trying to do some bit of research for the film, a little bit of what's interesting about this, this film, really, and so much. But I found the behind the scenes stuff, really. Production, of course. Obviously, scripts were changing. Cartel was overdubbed, really, and there we go. It's interesting now, it seems that when you watch it, it seems a bit weird, really, because, Farrah Fawcett, Kirk Douglas, it seems strange. It's like, Kirk Douglas obviously passed away, maybe a couple of years ago, really, at the 102, something like that, 101, 102, lived a very long life, really, and I sort of look at it and you think, it's strange, really, in terms with them two, with their relationship, really, but visually, it's good, actually. For a visual film for 1980, pretty good, actually. Obviously, it's after Star Wars, after Ridley Scott's Alien, Moonraker, then type of, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, that type of thing. And yeah, it's pretty good. British film, filmed on British soil, of course, American actors, very much. And I enjoy it. The score by Elmer Bernstein as well, really good stuff, actually. That's where I first came across this film, really. there's a YouTube channel that I tend to look at sometimes. I think it's like movie tributes or something like that. Movie film tributes, score tribute, music tributes. I think it's not. I don't know what it's called really. But I found this film actually and thought like, oh, I'm gonna see interested. Well, see what it's like really. What I originally thought was, judging by the thumbnail and the title, I thought it'd be something like a TV show from the 80s or something like that. You think of V, or what's that bloody show? Here in the UK, we did something called, we had one like a space opera in space. I don't know what it's called, Jupiter Rising or something. I don't know really. I thought it'd be something like that really, but no, it's quite wrong. It's a film, and focus on like a killer robot. It's kind of cover here. Quite interesting. It's an ITV DVD case. ITC did this actually. Worked in the film, I think, or distributed the film really. But for overall, I thought it was a pretty good film really. I enjoyed it for what it was. The score, small cast, bit of a runaround really, and it's a dog. A dog gets killed in this one, of course. There we go, really. Off screen, of course, but there we go. You don't see it. You sort of see its little squish remains like a soft toy covered in blood or whatever, that type of thing, really. But yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was pretty enjoyable film. I just picked it from HMV a few months back, actually. But yeah, pretty good stuff. I really did enjoy Sound Free. I did. Enough to say about that one, really. So that's movie number 1. Number 2, also from 1980. And that is Flash Gordon, the Mike Hodges film with Sam Jones and who else? Timothy Dalton, Max von Sydow, Topple as well, indeed, with the score by Queen and who's the other guy? Queen and was there something else who actually worked on this? No, this says Queen actually. Yeah, so obviously yes, Flash Gordon, quite infamous. It's quite a cult movie really. 1980. Also, it's a second hand, really. I'm going from. But I feel like I like it, Flash Gordon, because I own the soundtrack. I got the soundtrack years ago, 11 years ago. I got it from 10 years ago because Queen they were reissuing their albums for the 40th anniversary, 2011 remasters, deluxe edition. Remasters. Basically, the original album for second disc was a bonus EP, really, that type of thing. I've still got them, I do, and yeah. So my introduction really came through Queen, really, my love for Queen. Also, did the soundtrack. Listen to the soundtrack. I won't say it's the best Queen album, really, because it's like if you look at all 15 albums, this probably ranks to the bottom, really, because it's a soundtrack album. It does have its moments in terms of good music as well to keep yourself going, like Football Fight. Hero, the style theme song as well, which is people love as well, really. Again, it's like another one of those Queen's favourite greatest hits, really. You put a flash on, that's instantly recognisable. The film itself, yes, it's cheesy, it's popcorn fun, it's meant to be like comic booky, really, but it's a really good time, really. I had a good time with this, of course. Sam Jones is good, even though I think he was overdubbed really, I think, but really good presence. They actually reference it in the movie Ted, I think, when he appears, and obviously theme song Flash comes on, really, so that's a bit of a weird thing, really. Max von Sydow as Ming the Merciful, really good. Timothy Dalton in this is actually really good, actually, because it's like one of his sort of early roles as well, 1980 for Dalton. Obviously, he went on to do Bear Things, of course, played Bond, he played another film called Hawks that I saw recently as well. Hot Fuzz, obviously. Rassilon in Doctor Who, obviously. But really good, actually. And he does look good with a moustache, I have to admit, Dalton. Everything else, really good stuff. Again, it's a fun movie to watch, really. If you're with your mates or something like that, or you're having a few beers, whatever, it's fun, pulp, sci-fi, comic book stuff. It's really funny. I enjoy it, I do. I do enjoy it. For what it was, again, really good stuff. I know it's a cult classic anyway. I don't think it did well when it first came out, really, but it's a cult favourite amongst everyone, myself included, really, of course. I enjoy this film for what it's worth. Really good stuff, indeed. Nothing else to say. If you like Flash Gordon, maybe rewatch it, I think, maybe get a Blu-ray, 4K HD, whatever they release it on now these days, really. Never know. So yeah, that's good indeed. So Flash Gordon. So that's movie number 2. Movie number 3. So this is from 1982. Nothing from 81, 82. And it is The Last American Virgin. This, obviously you can tell this is a German import, this is. Last American Virgin, this is fascinating. American sex comedy, directed by Boaz Davidson. And this is a remake of his 1978 film Eskimo Lemon, aka Lemon Popsicle. Fun fact, so before I get into the film, Lemon Popsicle, I was familiar with this film because my mother seen this film back in the 70s, I think, back when it first came in the late 70s. I think late 70s doing like a double bill really, because she really wanted, I think it's like one of the films that they were showing in the UK at the time, really. And she enjoyed the film really, she thought it was pretty good. It's regarded as one of her favourite films of all time. So there we go, along with, I don't know actually, really, but or maybe something like Southern Comfort. I don't know, Walter Hill's Southern Comfort, maybe another one she remembers fondly, and Ryan's Daughter as well. Indeed, but this is, Lemon Popsicle is another favourite of hers, really. I did end up getting her a box set of like the original movie and the 3 of the sequels that come out. Jesus Christ. They did quite a lot of sequels for Lemon Popsicle, I have to admit, with the same actors in it as well. That cost about nearly 75 quid to get, even for a box set, you know, for the original film and 4 sequels. Well, there's 5 actually, because I found the 5th one solely in CX years ago. But she's got like, how many of them, really? But there we go. It's regarded as it's one of my favourite films of all time, really. My mum's. So what I found about this actually, I think it was through stuff like maybe the soundtrack and everything else, because there's a lot of familiar stuff like REO Speedwagon, Police, Devo, Blondie, the Commodores, the Waitresses. I know what boys. I know what boys like. Yeah, something like that really. And, you know, obviously, this is basically Lemon Popsicle for the 80s generation, really. So, new wave stuff, set in the 80s, contemporary 80s, really, and high school, that type of thing, really. It's basically it's beat by beat remake of this film, but set in the 80s in America, American actors in the 80s, really. So, it's definitely worth seeing, really. It doesn't even say all the bloody hits on the side, anyway. So, there you go. There's a sound. You can get the soundtrack as well, which is good. When I watched this, actually watched it through, I found it really good because I do like a good coming of age film. Sex comedies I enjoy. American Pie is one of my favorite films of all time. You know, you get that sort of thing really, and this didn't disappoint. You know, great characters. You get three characters really, like the 3 main trio, of course. Here, Harry, David, and Rick. They're known as actually here. I'm not sure what the original ones were. I'm not too sure. I don't know really. But they sort of like a similar thing. You know, like you got like 2 slim people and a fat fucker as well. Like as a main trio really, just looking for sex really, that type of thing. Obviously you get the infamous scenes of course like with the Consuela. I think in the middle-aged woman, Consuela woman actually, who's basically like a blonde bimbo. Well, in this version really, I think maybe the same thing. I'm not too sure. Maybe it's different because I haven't really seen the original 78 version, so I don't know compared to the 82 version. This 82 remake. But this one she's maybe Spanish, but she's basically American. You got the whole thing with the bloody hooker, and also they end up getting crabs the next day, of course, when they're constantly scratching the balls, and trying not to admit that they got crabs in front of the store owner, of course, and also trying to dive into the pool. It's like, oh shit, we got itches, like dive into the pool, and everything else. But you've also get the horror, you get the dramatic stuff as well. Diane Franklin's character, who's Karen, who ends up getting pregnant, of course, and ends up getting an abortion, of course. It's not as, let me think, it's not as risque as the original 78 version. It's more into the collage, really, whereas that 78 version, really, considering I haven't really seen the film very much, it's like, there are some familiar beats, quite infamous scenes in Eskimo Lemon, really, or Lemon Popsicle, whatever, in that, really. So you get that, get what was her name? Nikki or Nilly, whatever her friggin' name is. An abortion scene, of course, indeed. Where rather than being cut up like a collage, like with the main character, of course, in this one, of course, then it just cuts to her, getting line ready for the abortion. Really, it's not as risque as that. Also, you got U2, I Will Follow played over the titles, whereas in the original there's no music at all. It's just played in silence. It's played, no music, played meant to be dramatic, really. In that one. What else? And also the stuff as well, including like the final scene, of course, which she returns back to the boyfriend who got pregnant. Really, after all the help that the main protagonist has done, really, paying for the abortion and everything else, keep it safe, going back to a party, wherever, and what's that song? I forget, it's a Common song that plays at the end, really, on that one. Yeah, so it does follow the plot beats because it's the same director, of course, Bose Davidson. Yeah, also, I think as producer as well, he actually ended up producing some stuff for Stallone, I think. The Expendables springs to mind, really, but I'm not sure if he did other stuff as well, really. He did a lot of the sequels to Lemon Pops, of course, which is just like, there's 8 of them in total. I think up to about 1988 they did. And yeah, but this is basically like remaking his film really to an American audience, really. And I'm not sure about it really, if it did well, really, but I enjoy it. I thought it was pretty good, for a remake, a remake from about a couple of years later, maybe a few years after the original film came out. Solid, it's beat by beat. Just with American actors in the 1980s, it's definitely worth checking out. Arrow Video have released a Blu-ray version of this actually, but at the time really, I only had DVD players, so I was trying to solve this thing that was a bit of a pain in the ass. So I got this German import anyway, but it works. It's Region 2. It works perfectly, so that's pretty good. Enjoyed it for it was. So that's The Last American Virgin from 1982. Definitely worth checking out that film. So next we got is starts movie number 3. Number 4 is from 1985. And a film I'm actually going to very recently, and I think I can see why people love this film. It's a cult classic. It's from 1980s. It's horror. It is Reanimator from 1985. Stuart Gordon film. Batshit crazy. I enjoy this film. I see why people love this film. It's a cult classic, and yeah, Jesus Christ. So, it's based on Herbert West and Reanimator by H.P. Lovecraft. Way back when H.P. Lovecraft was infamous, really, at the time. Follows student Herbert West, played by Jeffrey Combs, who invents this serum, this glow-in-the-dark serum that reanimates the living dead, or anything living matter, really. Experiments on a cat first, called Rufus, and then, actually no, he tries to experiment with a bloody doctor in Zurich first, with his eyes popping out and everything else, then a cat called Rufus, and then Arnold Schwarzenegger's stunt double, and then bloody the dean's daughter, as you see, Dean's daughter's father, well, the dean's of the college, the medical college, excuse me. Yeah, so obviously trying to reimagine, try and make everyone back to living, really. Only just, for him to, we can get a chance to make people alive, maybe let them stay dead, of course, depends, really. That sort of thing, really. And I think it's like Mad Scientist, it's very Frankenstein, Mad Scientist type thing, really, but he has that sort of good intention, but he's insane and crazy. Brilliant, but crazy, and he captures that. Jeffrey Combs captures that perfectly. He does, really, indeed. You've also got Bruce Abbott as well as Dan Kane, really good performer. It's basically like with him, he's sort of the main character, really. He's the main sort of lead, the action type hero, really good performance by him, fantastic. Barbara Crampton, who's really good, sort of again more supporting role, really, but great as well. She wanted to do many mobile horror films at the time, still does, quite a lot of films. You see some interesting stuff as well. And yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, I'm after being something now actually, but obviously the infamous scene of her lying naked in the morgue, with the bloody head of obviously Dr. Hill, who has the intention of stealing Hill's West elixir or stuff, really, whatever you call it. And basically, basically cheats his way throughout through his career, really. I think it's like when West points out in the beginning of the film, really, when he's like in a college, coming across him, and actually, when the whole, and says that he's a fraud, that he's cheated, that sort of thing, and your this work belongs to someone else, that type of thing, and you just copy and steal, you just basically steal everyone's resources or whatever. Really does the same here, but he also has a weird infatuation, sexual infatuation with the dean's daughter, really. So yeah, and obviously you really see that properly, when obviously he gets his severed head and his corpse is carrying his head and is basically, let's say, I don't know really, just like try and attempt to rape her, really nude on a bloody morgue, on a morgue bench, whatever. It is strange. It is uncomfortable. I don't know what people thought. Well, who's his name? David Gale, who plays Dr. Hill. When that first came out, of course, his wife was in the audience as well. He was married at the time, and when she saw that, she literally stood up and actually shouted at him. It's like, what have you been doing? And how dare you? And she literally walked out, and then she split afterwards, I think. So it really put actually severed someone's marriage, really, that film. That's infamous scene. And then got a reference to American Beauty as well by Kevin Spacey. Ugh, God. Oh. Oh my jeez. All things really and also some action to reference that in a bloody movie, of course, which end up in Oscars, but people I don't want to talk about anymore. I certainly don't. Bloody hell. I'm tempted to, but no. So yeah, but apart from that, it's a really good film. Shot under $1 million, so just $1 million, and it's actually sort of done well. Really interesting. The score is done by Richard Band. Basically, if you look at the title sequence, it's basically Psycho, but with a drum beat added to it. Very Psycho-esque, very Bernard Herrmann, which actually suits the film decently, of course. But obviously, he got Richard Bangor stick to it, really. Richard, I think, is Charles Band's brother. I'm trying to think. Charles Band, of course, I think, who worked on, which is Empire Films, that obviously Richie did the film, distributed the film at the time, in 1985. Did other stuff like From Beyond. Robert Jock's sort of severed that, really, and end up just, I think he did Full Moon afterwards, Full Moon Features, where again, Puppet Master, that sort of thing, really, so you can continue on that one. Obviously, it's really good. I do like the theme, actually. The open theme, I really do enjoy. Richard Band, really good. Once you listen to it, of course, it's quite catchy as well. It's strange, again, Bernard Herrmann's Psycho with a drum beat. It's interesting, really. It works, though, and really good stuff. Considering it's from 1985, it's a low budget film, of course. Works interestingly, works wonderfully. And Conflict Shaw as well. It's a good breeze to get through. Some interesting stuff, interesting theories, interesting stuff. A lot of interesting deleted material as well. Believe it or not, on here. I think the scene is sort of. I think the director Stuart Gordon. I'll mention him later on. Actually, I'll mention stuff about him later on. Mention that the whole thing with David Gale's performance, especially with the Dean. There's that scene, of course, and he's meant to have like hypnotic powers, or something like powers of hypnosis or something like that. Really, very sort of that type of thing, and it's like she must be careful. She must be again talking about his daughter at the same table and having dinner. It's strange, and obviously at the end, what's his name? Robert Sampson, I think that's plays the Dean. Obviously breaks the glass, really. Again, talk about his daughter, of course. Talk about this. Kane should be, getting rid of, really, of course. And it's a bit strange, really. But there we go. But that's the scene that's all been cut. You can get it on here. It's in the delete. It's got deleted scenes anyway. So there we go. On that front. Um, yes, indeed. So that's one thing. Um, oh yeah, one other thing. I could probably mention this as well. There is a actually stuff that was moved the cutting room floor, but this one sort of it says it's a delete. It says it's a delete scene, but it doesn't. It's not really a delete scene in a way. I think it's like it's a promo thing, really, like it's a promotional film for Reanimator. Really, like if you show in theaters at the beginning of a film, really, it's like you do with Let me think of one that's like a promo like for a taster, which is I don't know if everyone's ever actually seen it really, but it's when bloody it opens up with, obviously with Dan King walking into the morgue really with the body. You got Herbert West, Dr. Hill, and you got the Dean, of course, arguing, of course, Dr. Hill, you're a fraud, that type of thing, of course, which you see in the original in the film really. It's like, how dare you, that type of thing, of course. And also he's like, I perfected this thing, of course, to reanimate the living. And obviously, they said we may demonstrate, and under reveal it's Barbara Crampton on the bloody bed on the thing. It's like, wait, what? It's like, and obviously injects in the bloody underneath the chest, underneath the breast, I think, and she reanimates. And obviously, she has this weird psychedelic, like she's high on LSD or something. Real, like she's high as a kite, like she's taking LSD or something. It says, like she's, weirdly infatuated. It's strange. It's weird. It's a bit of a weird thing, really. But and again, and been sort of fully naked on the bloody bed. Um, and obviously, it's like and Jeffrey Combs is like, yeah, it's like yes, look, and that sort of thing. Like really excited, everything else, and then something. And then something like, like wait, like sort of Kane comes to the sense like, no, wait, no, no. And she flies back and screams her freaking head off and it ends. It's weird. That is strange. They say it's a deleted scene on this bloody DVD, but it ain't. I think it's a promo thing, I think, or like test footage or something like that. It's something along those lines. It's not a deleted scene because it's if you see it's it's not correct in the film really. It's strange. Unless it's like the first time they ever shot, I don't know. I have no idea, really. But there we go. Um, I mentioned Stuart Gordon earlier on. Stuart Gordon, my I've seen one of his films before, which was Fortress back in 1992. Had it on an ex rental VHS back in the day. Of course, Fortress, Christopher Lambert. Um, Back in the, that's the only film I've ever seen of his really. Stuart Gordon's until just recently, of course, with Reanimator. I haven't really seen Film Beyond, which is the next sort of H.P. Lovecraft film they did afterwards. Again, Jeffrey Combs and Barbara Crampton are in that film really. So that's straight after, which is all paired together. They're sort of neatly paired together. They are really, but he's done other stuff like Stuck, and what was the other one? Edmund. That's the one. I mean. So potentially, obviously, he passed away last year. I think he did. Stuart Gordon, 2020, he passed away. Um, indeed, but interesting. One of those things. You've also got Brian Usner as well as a producer as well. Brian Usner directed Society, which I do own. Interesting enough, he directed Return of the Living Dead 3. That's another one. The Dentist. The two films of The Dentist. Interesting. Mark Ruffalo's in the first Dentist. If you know, if you know, Christ. Oh yeah, that'll be interesting. All you need is like Paul Rudd and Mark Ruffalo in a bloody horror film together in the '90s before MCU kicked off. That'll be something. He did curse at Malcolm Myers anyway, Paul Rudd, and also Mark Ruffalo did The Dentist, of course, under Brian Usner. But also, Brian Usner directed the other two films, of course, which was of Reanimator. Bride of Reanimator from 1990 and Beyond Reanimator from 2003, I think. 2003? Yeah, I think 2003. They did them three films, of course. Jeffrey Combs returns as Herbert West, of course. Bruce Abbott returns in the sequel. He appears in Beyond Reanimator. Barbara Crampton doesn't appear in any of them, really. David Gill actually returns in a brief scene at the beginning of Beyond Reanimator as the head of Dr. Hill, of course. Interesting, it opens the film with that. And then you get a proper Frankenstein story with the sequel, with Bride of Reanimator, of course, ripping off Bride of Frankenstein. Beyond Reanimator takes place in a prison, strangely, and someone involved like a doctor who actually seen Herbert West as a child, ends up becoming a doctor here and ends up helping out, bloody causing chaos and bloody in a bloody maximum security prison at the time because he's the prison's doctor, something like that. But let's go back to Reanimator. I enjoy it. It's a batshit crazy film. It starts off with good, interestingly, with mysterious things. So with his elixir, reanimating dead bodies and everything else. And then it all kicks off with the third act, really, when, the whole thing with Dr. Hill bloody kidnaps the Dean's daughter, attempts to basically rape her with just a severed head, strangely, and he reanimates the bloody morgue. And basically everything just goes on. One thing I didn't know actually, is not too sure what happened to the bloody security guard, because that security guard keeps popped in, but he never had a death or anything like that, unless he just flees. He never got killed. He never got killed or ripped apart really. So I don't really know. But yeah, it's what happened to him really. Who knows? Yeah, but there we go. It's I can see why people like this. It's good. It's gory. It's gory as hell. Good practical effects. Cast are good. Good performances. Scores pretty decent as well. Like by Bernard Herrmann style to it. Really good stuff. I haven't seen the other two yet. Really. Don't know if it could be available actually on DVD. Maybe, I don't know. Who knows? Really. I'll watch it on YouTube. I don't know. But yeah, I would definitely recommend Reanimator. Good stuff, really. This version, I could probably say this version's the better one because it's the unrated version. It's restored better, picture quality is decent, second sight film. I think that's the version you could probably get in HMV, really, from your local retailer. You get a long hour-long documentary as well. I think like an hour and a half, 90-minute documentary as well. Really good stuff, very informative as well. Barbara Crampton wasn't meant to be in the film, was meant to be a different actress, but the actress pulled out because her mother read the script or something like that, and it's like, no, you're not doing that film. No, fuck off, you're not going to do that film. So she stepped in, of course, and it gives you a little bit of insight, really, of course. The special effects, production, of course, which basically, basically saying like a decayed studio, it's all falling apart with paint chips and holes in the ceiling and everything else. Stuff like that. It's really good, informative documentary. It's worth. That's one of the things that's worth checking out. The extended scenes and that bloody weird deleted scene, of course, is included on here, and a stills gallery of production stills, behind the scenes stuff. I definitely recommend this actually. Get this version. This version, definitely get it, or get on Blu-ray, whatever you like. So there we go. So that's movie number 4. Number 5 is from 1986. Now this I watched just yesterday actually. So there we go. And that is Big Trouble in Little China from John Carpenter's. I don't know why you say it. I don't know you think the turning point in his career, really. When Hollywood, he got sick and tired of Hollywood and returned to his roots, really, doing low independent films, really. 20th Century Fox film, I say 6, Kurt Russell, Kim Cattrall, Dennis Lung's in this as well. I enjoyed this. I did. A lot of people love this as well. It's another cult favourite among people. Really good stuff. I enjoyed. Crazy, really. A lot of people. It's Chinese. So martial arts quite heavy, really. A lot of fights, a lot of good fantasy stuff as well, done by Boss Films. Interesting cast, a lot of funny moments. Really funny as well. It relies on. It's got a lot of humour to it. A lot of good humour. And works well. Special effects are good. Again, and the score done by Carpenter and Alan Howarth. Really good stuff. Adds a good bit of interesting stuff. Also, at the end credits as well, John Carpenter actually sings with his bloody band actually. I don't know what we call the bloody band now, but it's him, Tommy Lee Wallace, and Nick Castle, because they formed a band at the time in college, I think. And they actually did a few songs. They did one appeared at Halloween in 1978, and obviously they performed this whole title track at the end of the film, really. But I enjoyed it for what it was, really. A lot of people, it's a cult favourite among people. Obviously, didn't do at the time, really, 1986. And, but obviously, he was getting all love. Kurt Russell as Jack, what is that? Jack Burton, that's it. I didn't say Jack Bourbon then, but it's Jack Burton. Again, that type of thing. Bit of an idiot, really. You look at Kurt Russell, it's typical hard man. It's save the day really in a way. But it's like he's thrown in the middle of this weird stuff really. I guess he's seen his friend, of course, played by Dennis Lund, and they end up in this like weird, bizarre thing involving bloody two magician, a magician, and ceremonies and trying to save people, women with jade green eyes, really, Asian, that type of thing. It's interesting. It is, and he's more played from comic relief, Kurt Russell, really, and Dennis Land's sort of the main straight down the action hero type fella, really, and he works perfectly actually. Kurt Russell and Dennis Land actually in this film work perfectly, fantastic. Kim Cattrall's interested because I watched Oliver Harper's early retrospective review, like his early reviews, when he did this, when he covered the film, and he said, she good present, of course, but she plays it's a bit hammy in places in terms, but it's meant to be like itself. In terms of the tone of the film, really, obviously it's all plays for that. And I remember watching it. I think she does play it hamming up a bit, really, and yeah, that is something. Interestingly, but Kim Charles, good actress, really good. It's probably one of the films that she's more famous with, really, alongside Porky's and Police Academy, that type of thing, of the time. I think Compton wanted her, really, but the studio, 20th Century Fox wanted someone bigger, more better, really, but obviously, and look at Charles, like, no, she did sex comedies, really. It's like, what appeal is that? But they end up choosing her in the end, really. But I just noticed actually with the cover, if you noticed, not the sort of thing that she will wear really, like a ripped up dress. No, she wears like blue, what do you call it? Like again, like jeans, boots, and what cardigans, whatever, and Asian garb, really. Nothing like that, really, like cover, but catch the likeness, really. Like someplace like she's surviving the jungle or something, the Amazon rainforest or something, really. But I enjoyed it for what it was. Again, good humour, good special effects, a lot of interesting monsters as well. Like they just pop out of nowhere. It's like, wait, what? It's like you sort of get really confused. It's weird. It's like you focus on the Chinese and there's like weird mysticism, of course, involving magicians. What's his name? Oh, what's his face? Lil Pen. Obviously you meet him first, and he's like the old man prosthetics. Of course, he's very witty and it's like quite funny and hilarious. And you see him, and the back cover is actually that cover very much like that, very sinister, and it's like Palmer. It's very like Gary Oldman and Bram Stoker's Dracula. I just look at that. I think he looks like Gary Oldman in a way. Reminds me of that really. Bram Stoker's Dracula type look really, especially when he's youthed up. When he goes to London, looks and believe Mina Harker, Rihanna Ryder. Yeah, but I just enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for what it was, really. It's a cult, and I can see why it's a cult classic. People love this film. People do love this film. It's one of their favourite Compton films. I can see why. There we go. I mean, obviously, Prince of Darkness and Let You Live followed after this, of course. He did Starman beforehand anyway, so it's in that sort of realm, really. But it's an interesting look, yes, Carpenter. Definitely worth checking out, this one is. If you want something like a good fun comedy action stuff with Chinese people going around, just full of fight scenes mixed together with a bit of fantasy and weirdness. That's definitely, and also you got the stuff with the bloody lightning monks that inspired Bloody Raiden for more combat 6 years later down the line. There you go. So that's number 5, Big Trouble in Little China. Number 6 is from 1988, and this is Waxwork, horror film. Don't be fooled by the cover. That is not what the cover does. So it's not like a weird, freaky film. It's like people look at it, you think, oh my god, really? He appears in the film, the butler, but everything else in here does not. It misleads you. It does. So Waxwork, 1988, American film. This is directed by Anthony Hickox, who I first watched. One of his films I watched first was Hellraiser 3: Hell on Earth, which he took over from Clive Barker and Tony Randall, who did the previous two. And this is before, actually, so 1988 this is. So, yes, interesting bit of an interesting director. The other thing, I think the other film I watched of his was that bloody werewolf film with well, I don't know what it's called now, but it's like like futuristic cops and werewolves with Maren von Peebles and Patsy Kensington. 1993 it's from. I don't know what it's called now, but I don't know. Make what you will about that film. Don't know what it's called though. So Waxworks. So story goes, these teenagers, high school teenagers, go to this Waxworks museum because it got invited by David Warner, of all people, to see, but weirdly appears, and then, it's like, oh, I got Waxworks and stuff. I got Wax Museum inside that bloody house. If you want to, please come, of course, please come one night, that type of thing. And so they end up doing so. Most of them do, really. This includes people like Zach Galligan, who's famous for Gremlins, the Gremlins films, and Cyborg 3, if anyone sings that film, Malcolm McDowell. Michelle Johnson, who appears in stuff like Glimmerman and Blame on Rio beforehand, which was Stanley Don's final feature film, which eventually directed Saturn 3. So there you go. Dan Ashbrooks as well, and Patrick Meny's in it as well at the time. I think that's sort of like a wheelchair-bound hunter, really. Something like that. So the thing with this, of course, it's still a wax museum, yes, but it doesn't involve wax figures, weird ones, trying to reanimate and steal the souls. Really, it's not like that. Really, it's not like tourist trap or whatever. What it is these waxworks exhibitions are basically portals to different worlds. And if you cross the barrier, you go into this bloody world. So you go to stuff like, bloody like a forest bit, like where a werewolf goes, or you go to Dracula's castle, or you go to a mummy's tomb. It's stuff like that. And you basically go to like horror, classic horror, universal horror type scenarios. Really, in this one, you go to these sort of like portals to these worlds, and you end up getting killed, and you become the bloody exhibit itself. Really, and you do so. I find it interesting. A bit of an odd thing, really, because that's like a bit like science fiction in a way, strangely, but does its job. I don't know what Hickles was thinking of, really, or unless he wrote it. I'm not too sure. I don't think he did. Actually, he did. Yes, he wrote and directed the bloody film. So I don't know what he's really thinking of, really. Thinking of some weird ideas, really. So there we go. Yeah, it's very an interesting concept. It's a very interesting thing, really. But definitely, I think it's like, people think, oh, waxwork, reanimated stuff, steal your souls, or buy your flesh, whatever, or rip your things off, rip your head off, that type of thing. No, it's not that. Well, some of that does really exist, really. But it's when it's like these teenagers get transported to different worlds, and they end up either end up getting killed. Really, some of them do get killed, turn to werewolves. One gets turned to a werewolf. One of them becomes a vampire, like the mistress, like the brides of Dracula. Someone actually does get like what do you call it? Skinned. The bones, of course, in a bloody crypt somewhere in Dracula's castle, and that's an interesting practical effect. But you've also got the whole thing. What do you think? Involving David Warner. Excuse me. Involving David Warner's character, and also Patrick Meny's sort of, I think, like they've known each other for years, that type of thing, like old enemies or something like that. And that sort of thing. And obviously, it all came to head. You get like a lynch mob come in, and basically everything goes batshit crazy. You got Waxworks, they sort of spring to life. They sort of spring to life, really, anyway, but like an animatronic type way, like animatronic soldiers, and basically just have a big battle in this bloody Wax Museum, really, and that's how it is, really. And I thought it was pretty good, really. Like I mentioned before, I saw Hell Was a Free, Hell on Earth first, really. Then that bloody cop werewolf movie that he did. And I thought it was pretty good. I just really enjoyed this, actually. He did do a sequel, though, in 1992, which basically falls on from this film. Zach Galligan returns. Deborah Foreman, who actually was dating Anthony Cox at the time, wasn't there. Was included. They sort of just briefed up really. Like sort of split the did. Of course, there's someone else replaced her. In that one, you got people like Martin Kemp, Bruce Campbell, and some other people. A few familiar faces as well in that film really. And what's it called? Max Factor 2 Lost in Time, it's known as. You can get on the Vestron DVDs paired up with this film, really, but do I need to see that? I don't know. But as a standalone film, definitely worth checking out, actually, It's an interesting concept, good cast, and it's sort of a homage to classic horror films, really, the Universal era. But it's definitely worth checking out. I've got some eBay last year? 2020, no, I got it from 2020, actually. From there. But it's definitely worth checking out Max Book if you're interested. So that is number 6. So movie number 6 is done. Movie number 7 is also from 1988 and a film that I bought 2021. I did. So last year I got it from. It is a film I want to see actually. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Classic 80s film. This is for, if you think of 1988, you probably think of this film really. Indeed, second copy from CX really. I really enjoyed this actually because I remember seeing it years ago on television, a long time ago, but I never saw it again actually. And also I think it's on Disney Plus I think these days. So it's definitely worth getting a DVD copy actually of this film. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. Down to the technical level, the production of it, of course. Down to the late Bob Hoskins' performance, really good stuff. The animation, really good stuff, and just the whole energy of it, really good stuff. I really enjoyed this. It's a nice homage to the old cartoons from the 1940s, Looney Tunes, Disney. That sort of homage, even though the old bloody appear in the bloody film they do, which is interesting. That's like probably the only time they actually ever appear together, like Mickey Mouse, Bugs Bunny, all stuff like from MGM, by Disney, whatever. At the end of the film, it's interesting, but really good stuff, really good animation. I'm trying to think who actually did the animation. I don't really know actually, strangely, so I don't know. I'm not too sure really, but Richard whatever, did, his name escapes me, his surname escapes me, but there we go. But really good stuff, animation's fantastic, Charles Fleischer as Roger Rabbit, really good performance, because I think he worked with Bob Hoskins as well, like working on as a practicing of course, and working with him more so. It's a bit like Tom Baker did with John Leeson up to the time when Kano was introduced. John Leeson and Tom Baker worked closely together for that dynamic, really, in a way. Maybe it's the same thing here. Just good animation, bizarre characters. Christopher Lloyd as Judge Doom, of course, freaked a lot of people out when he has that reveal when he's a Toon, and actually the Toon actually killed Eddie's brother. That's interesting. When his eyes pop out, has that squeaky voice, cartoon eyes. It's like that would have been freaky for kids at that time, really, and probably in 1988, really, who saw this. It's like oh god, actually scream their heads off, really. Obviously, Christopher Lloyd, good actor as well. I think one of the turning points as well is you got Jessica Rabbit as well in this film. Jesus Christ. Obviously, as regarded as one of the sexiest cartoon characters ever, really. That's what the whole internet says. That's what the whole of the internet really says, really. Along with Betty Boop, which actually appears in the film. Nice little touch. I do like that. I do like that scene, actually. I believe Bob Hoskins, having a decent chat with Betty Boop in a blue bar, with penguins as the waiters, delivering, like on the rocks, really, and I don't mean rocks, of course. Like whiskey with stones in, or pebbles in. Oh, it's interesting. Obviously, she's in black and white. She's not in colour. She's not in colour, actually, Baby Boop, strangely. I always associate with her with colour, but obviously it's black and white television she originates from, so she's in black and white. You've also got that brilliant scene with Donald Duck and Daffy and that bloody piano tournament, whatever you call it. That is fantastic. Again, real life pianos, animation, technical stuff. That must have been really interesting, really good stuff. Robert Zemeckis directed the film. He did Forrest Gump, which is a fabulous film, and obviously worked on Back to the Future as well, the Back to the Future trilogy. Again, so that would have been in between the first film and the two sequels they did, because obviously Back to the Future 2 and 3 were done back to back. They were. So obviously after this film, Back to the Future came back, boom, and other stuff really. Forrest Gump came afterwards. I'm not sure what else he done. He done really, but it seems like to be a bit of a slow decline with his career. Robert Zemeckis, full on animation CGI, really. Well, yeah, he tries to do. I think. What was that film he did? Not Welcome to Yarwin. Was that another film he did? I don't know actually. Comment down below if you remember Robert Zemeckis' work. But going back to this, of course, I really enjoyed it. I think it's really good because it's a film that I remember. Obviously people remembering pop culture, of course, but I haven't seen it for years. So looking back on this film, actually seeing it once on television, actually watching it fully for the first time, it was a really good experience. Bob Hoskins really sells it. He does really good. Christopher Lloyd as well, and you got the voice actor, of course, John Slicer, whatever, and who else? Who voices Jessica Rabbit on here? Joanna Cassidy. Again, just really good stuff, and also the references between for various animation studios, Warner Brothers, Disney, whatever. It's a nice touch. It's an interesting time capsule. It is really of that time. Really, if you did something like this now, wouldn't work. Less likely, very less likely, And they did do a sequel, I think. The guy who did the book, it's based on a book. This is Gary K. Wolfe. Did another one actually as well. So I can't imagine that coming out really. Imagine, Jesus Christ. If you did that, if you sort of did that maybe in the 90s, it'd probably be all right. If you do it in the 2020s now, no way in hell. I doubt it. I really doubt it. Well, companies these days, Disney and everything, no. So that's Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Definitely worth seeing. Worth watching. Brilliant, great film. It's a good kids film. Well, it's a family film. Really, so that's number 7. That is number 8. So we skipped to 992, and this is Split Second. British film, 1992. Starring Rutger Hauer, you got Neil Duncan, Alan Armstrong, Kim Cattrall as well. She returns, interestingly. Michael J. Pollard as a rat catcher as well. Gets his credit even though he doesn't appear as much in the film. He appears briefly in the film, but he gets a credit as well. Like a major credit. So, where to start with this film? So, I first know about this film through Oliver Harper because he did a retrospective review on this film. He did. He had the Laserdisc version of this by HBO, and sort of obviously had that, or someone recommended him the trailer really, and I thought that's a pretty good film really, and he's not wrong actually. I never actually bothered seeking the film out after he did the retrospective really, but it sort of took a bit of interest, look back and of course like that, and you think like maybe check it out. I found it actually very cheap, actually very cheap really, and watched it in whole. Really good. I can see why himself, actually, Harper himself, like this, On more rewatches, he gets enjoyment out of it. I actually think it's really good. A British film, set in Britain, must say around London, a business side of London, really, with flooding, set in 2008. Rutger Hauer taking the lead, of course, late Rutger Hauer. Yeah, because I keep thinking, like, he passed away, didn't he? Indeed. Rutger Hauer. I do remember getting two films I remember watching of his at the time. The first one I remember was Blind Fury. That's his first, him as that blind swordsman chained by the Vietnamese, that type of thing, and stuff, stuff happens in that film. That's the first film I remember saw of him, really. And the other film was Wanted Dead or Alive, which I think I remember getting along with Terminator 1, 2, Heartbreak Ridge, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Predator 2, and I think that was it really. That was like a bunch of films that come out, all single tapes, no casings or anything, because the casings, someone, I don't know what happened really, but when we had a look, the guy had the box. It was all spilled with Tipex and everything, so it ruined the cases. So all we just had the blank tapes. We just had the normal, like the tapes really, no cases whatever, on those films really. But there you go. So that was my sort of introduction to Rukawa. So actually, coming to this one now, obviously he did Blade Runner as well. Just for I keep forgetting that actually, he was in Blade Runner, and so we get to this one, of course. Really good stuff, really good filmed, good actors as well, decent British actors as well. Because I've got because you got Neil Duncan, who was in Taggart, of course. Alan Armstrong, he's playing in other stuff, mate stuff really. He played in Van Helsing. He was in New Tricks. He was in a pilot. He was like a series, but which actually ended up becoming a similar thing, but ended up involving its own thing called the Beiderbecke series. Really, if anyone's seen that, if you're British, you've probably seen that with Barbara Flynn and James Bolton in that one. So yeah, obviously Kim Cattrall as well, who sported her Vulcan hairstyle from Star Trek Six: The Undiscovered Country, because I think this was straight after the production wrapped on Star Trek Six. So there we go. But I enjoy it, of course. It's a good action romp. It's a buddy cop film with serious satanic stuff on it, of course, involved with a killer ripping people's hearts out and putting satanic symbols on. The killer itself, I think that's the main sort of nitpick I have to say with the film. It's basically like a bloody alien rip-off, like xenomorph rip-off, really. You can't really see in the films, really. You sort of get a little information here, really. But if you see the film, and if you don't really see it until like the very end of the final act, really, in terms of the final battle. It's basically like how it looks. It's like when I first looked at it, I thought like it's like some bulky, bloody some guy in a motorcycle helmet going around like some like maniac cop or whatever. But in actual fact, it's basically like this bloody demon, like some xenomorph-esque demon, going round really and taking people's hearts. Has a connection to stone because he sort of senses that creature Marley because he sort of like got attacked by it, but it lived really. Took his partner Foster as well. Yeah, quite a few things, quite a bit going on really. But obviously Neil Duncan, also the character Dick Durkin. Because even though he's Scottish, of course, it's a bit of weird. It's a weird thing, Dick Turpin. I think they were sort of like playing like Dick Durkin. Also, although Thrasher's a stupid name, Alan Armstrong's character, Thrasher, Harley Stone, reasonable, really, and who knows, really. But for what it's worth, for a film from 1992, British film, B movie, definitely worth looking out for. Definitely worth checking that out. It's interesting. 101 Films did this release actually. I think did they do another one as well? I remember. Well, it's part of the Cold Movie collection, really. I'm not sure what other films they probably released underneath the banner. Who knows? But yeah, I thought it's a good fact. It's a good thing. Thanks to Oliver Harper for doing that retrospective and actually getting some interest through it for people. So I got my interest. I enjoyed it for what it was. Okay, so that's movie number 8. That's number 8. So number 9. We're skipping a few years to 1996, and we've got Space Jam, of course. Space Jam 96. I picked this up last 2021 as well. Cheap as well. Really, got from CX. Space Jam. When I first knew about Space Jam, I saw it on Sky on Boomerang at the time when it broadcast. And obviously, you watch cartoons, really. Of course, at the time when the film pops up, it's like, oh, okay, I'll stick around for the film. And also, this film called Space Jam, it's like, what is Space Jam? That's a bit of a strange name. But it's like, okay, well, might as well see what it's like. And it's basically Looney Tunes and basketball. And it's like, wait, what? So, Looney Tunes and Will was like, wait, what? What's this film? When I first watched it, I was like really baffled by it. A famous basketball player with the Looney Tunes doing a basketball game, that sort of thing. It's a weird concept, really, but it's I don't know. It's like one of those things. When I first watched it, it's like okay, wait, what? You know, and you, it just goes places. It does really. Indeed. Let's give some good things about this first. Voice cast is actually really good. I enjoy what was going on. Billy West, I think, actually does good Bugs. Really. Also, I've actually I've warmed to Jeff Bergman's interpretation as Bugs as well. I think when I first heard it before, like, not really, but over time I was sort of like, actually, you listen when you listen to it a bit more, you get like you sort of getting Mel Blanc is. You sort of get into that bit really. He's like fine tuned it, of course. I saw getting now with Jeff Bergman really. Billy West as well, who did other stuff like he famously did Fry for Futurama before Futurama was a thing really. Did Bugs Bunny of all things. Yeah, and other people as well. D Wallace. Oh no, is it Bradley D Baker? Does Daffy? I think. Yeah, I think so. Um, on there, and it's just a weird film. It's like when I think of this film, it's a baffling thing. Of course, when I'm going back to when I first watched it. It's like okay. Over time, of course, I haven't really seen Space Jam since really, but I've taken it obviously when the sequel came out, New Legacy. It's sort of taken interest. I might as well check out this of course and see what it's like really. Looking back on it, it's clunky as buggery. I have to admit, the animation's good. Michael Jordan, I don't know. He's a bit. It's like he doesn't know what he's doing. It's like. I don't know. I think it was intriguing because obviously where this bloody film stems from is from light commercials. That the person, well, Joe Patika actually directs as well, ends up directing the film as well. Same with Michael Jordan. Like these books, really, Michael Jordan bloody infomercials they did for Nike back in 94, 93, 94, I think. Back in the mid-90s, back in late, early mid-90s they did this. They did these, and yeah. It's just like a weird thing. It's like, why do you want to take a commercial to a bloody film? I don't know if they actually, did they do such a thing? I don't know. Maybe. Did they? I mean, they did some SNL stuff and that turned into films and they didn't really work out. In some stuff did, some stuff doesn't. Master of Disguise, or Pat, or, oh god, some other stuff. I don't know. But just the commercials, I don't know. You never really get that, really. Like, adapt a film. Yeah, adapt a commercial to a film. It's like, what doesn't really work? And this is the main answer, really. And people don't feel like that probably works, really, in a way. But yeah, you get a decent kick out of it. You get some you get the 90s references, of course. You get the Pulp Fiction reference, which is interesting with Elmer Fudd and Yosemite Sam. That is funny. The whole thing. Bill Murray, why is he here? I don't know. Wayne Knight, I don't mind actually. Bit of a wet fart. Yeah, he's a bit of the comic. He's more the comic relief, of course, and it's doable, really. I think. Stan. But Bill Murray, I don't know. It's like post Groundhog Day. It's weird. It's funny, and I do like the reference. I do like that funny reference with Dan DeVito, who's the voice of the main alien in the film. Obviously, I didn't recognize it at first, but it was like, DeVito's the main villain, of course, and voice. I was like, okay. And see, I did Dan Aykroyd was in this picture. I actually do think that's hilarious, actually. Like a funny little nod, really, and yeah. I think the main thing what people think of member of Space Jam, of course, is Lola Bunny, who when I first watched Space Jam, it was like, wait, okay, how they're basically introducing a female, of course. Obviously, this all did with Pepe Le Pew, really, and who else? I know they did Tom and Jerry as well, of course, did the bloody white cats, seductive white cats like Marilyn Monroe type stuff, but here you get like tomboy-esque style, don't call me dull, and that sort of stuff. Is like, really. But I think over time that character's improved, really. When they look at Lola Bunny, they actually reinvented that character, really. what I've looked at really, and what I've seen from people who reviewed it, like Saber Spark, and maybe a few people who probably delve into the cartoons more interestingly, she's more refined, more of the time, really, more tomboyish, really more stronger, really, a bit more interesting than in the film when she's first introduced, really, and yeah, it's like it's like she may be strong, but it's like maybe a tomboyish, but not really. She's just played there for like for sex appeal, really, and obviously. Although to be fair, us Brits didn't. We sort of got that earlier with the bloody Caramel Bunny. Yes, that's true. In the 80s we did with the Caramel Bunny. It's like you Americans didn't. If you people from the States who are watching this, you never got that really until Space Jam come along. Really, unless you count Fritz the Cat, I don't know, or I don't know, maybe I don't know, but we had like bloody sexy animated bunnies beforehand, really in the 80s, promoting chocolate and being seductive and characters going, like going with steam out the ears with love in their eyes. And you go like, bloody, white rabbits doing clucking noises, really, until you got Space Jam. So there we go. But I watched it recently, and yeah, it's okay. I didn't get a good feeling out of it. I sort of go like, yeah, it's decent. It got reasons why it does. It doesn't. The ending's oddly weird as well. Indeed, like you spend like the lunatics will come back. It doesn't. It ends like it's a bloody basketball movie. It's like Bring It On or bloody what's that film? That boxer film. Or Ali. It was Ali really. Is there another one? Or something like the Mighty Ducks or whatever. Really, it's like that really. Or white men can't jump. It's like that. And you think like, oh, by the way, it's like this all just go out really. It's like this all they finish the game, of course, and Michael Jordan returns the powers, of course, from the bloody aliens to the basketball players who actually lost the mojo or the energy or whatever it is really in a basketball. Touch the ball, God, touch it. It's cheesy in places. It's very 1996. It's of its time. If you want a film that's of its time, this is the film. Bloody hell. But there we go. I've got to say about everyone's talking about Space Jam. I just talk about my little section to it, of course. But there we go. So that is movie. That's movie number 9. So that's Space Jam. Movie number 10. This is from 2000. So we skip 2000 now. It is Shaft. I talked about Shaft, the third Shaft film from 2019, which I watched on Netflix. This is the second one, really. So from 2000, this is basically a follow-on from the films which starred Richard Roundtree, of course. I think they did about 3 or 4 of them. They did, of course, in the 70s. And obviously, I think it got repeated, of course. And obviously, we got this film, of course, from 2000. It's directed by John Singleton, who did Boys in the Hood. Quite an interesting film. I still need to see that film, really. So obviously he's directed this film. Stars Samuel L. Jackson, of course, as Shaft's nephew. Shaft's nephew, basically. So it's a continuation on, of course. Richard Roundtree appears in the film as well. He appears in the fully fur film, which I mentioned last year, 2 years ago, about a couple of years ago actually. Really, maybe 2020 I mentioned it. So there we go. So basically Shaft's. So his nephew's taken the mantle, of course, being police officer, being everything else, and so that's one thing. Really. But let's just think. I'm losing track now. So story goes, of course, is this witness played by Toni Collette. Witness is like this racist killer. Basically, this killer racist really played by Christian Bale at this restaurant, of course, and she ends up basically trying to bring him to justice, and basically trying to be like a weird witness protection thing going on with Toni Collette really. something like that, that type of thing, really. But also you got drug lords as well, indeed, with so let's go for these. That's all. Again, well, drug lords, of course, and it ends up being double crossing, really, like a weird, like a crime thing going on, and yeah. Well, let's go through this. So, cast wise, of course. So obviously, oh my god, for now, Samuel Jackson is in it, of course. Really good performance by him. Plays Shaft, not Shaft, of course. Played Shaft, really good. Typical Sam Jackson performance. Tough nut, motherfucker, and everything else. Really good stuff. You got Christian Bale as the main protagonist in this one. He plays what's his name, White or Walters or something like that, something junior. Basically, what was it? He's basically like a policeman's son or something like that, or department, or someone higher up in the system, in the crime system. His son is just an absolute fuckbag, really. Racist bastard and everything else. Basically gets what he wants, really, that type of thing. But and this is the same time he did American Psycho as well. Same time, 2000, yeah. So American Psycho came out. He was in this film, and obviously went on to the Christopher Nolan Batman movies and other stuff as well. Obviously Machinist as well, that type of stuff. You've also got Jeffrey Wright as well, playing with the main sort of like drug dealer, Hispanic drug dealer, of course. Jeffrey Wright, I think, by people's uh, in their way with Basket, John Michel Basket, that biopic from in the 90s, I think. And I think a few other things, I'm not too sure, but he also, what else did he do? Jeffrey White. When he appeared Felix Light in the Bond films, the Daniel Craig Bond films, well, three of them really. Obviously appearing in Batman as well. Matt Reeves' Batman that come out this year, of course. Nice little plug in there, of course. So he plays Hispanic drug lord. You've also got Toni Collette as well in this as sort of like the witness who witnesses the violent attack, of course, and obviously ends up being this weird witness protection program. You've also got the Buster Rhymes. I'm just trying to find the cast list on here. Well, Buster Rhymes. You've also got the cops, the crooked cops, of course, who try to double cross Shaft, and also the drug dealer as well, and his partner as well. I'm trying to think who it is. Vanessa Williams. That's it. Who's in as well. Again, pretty good cast actually. Very good, strong cast, I have to admit. Indeed. Music is done by David Arnold as well, who basically he actually works nicely. It does. Again, it replicates that sort of 70s feel. Again, like what is Isaac, with what the 70s version of Shaft did, and yeah, it works very well. Obviously, of course, Richie Roundtree as well appears in the film, as well. Yeah, that's all pretty good. So, whatever. Why is it? Why am I reviewing this anyway? Like, really, why? I think I mentioned the Shaft 2019 one. I don't know. If I haven't, really, I can probably say here now. I first watched this on Channel 4 a long time ago, many years ago. Probably should have because I was young, and I shouldn't. I stayed up late to watch this. Oh yeah, so I would have been at school the next day. I don't know. Probably not. I don't know. Unless it was weekend. I don't know. But I saw this late at night. I did, and watched it. And I never thought anything of it really. It was like some random action film I saw. And I do remember bits and pieces, of course. When I look back on it, it's like, oh yeah, I remember some bits and pieces. I remember a bloody car chase at the end, really, like a final act or something that's involved in a car chase, stuff like that, with Shaft in. But I can't remember anything else about it. So we ended up seeing this really. So I ended up getting the film. I did actually get let's just say, I did get a copy of this, like the original DVD of it, from a bus station when lockdown was happening. We had a bus station. We had this bus stop that's filled with junk in it, that's with books and stuff, and food, of course, because obviously lockdown, there feels like the whole pandemic bullshit happened, and obviously they were getting rid of DVDs. You can get them you can get them for free really. It's like, oh, there's a DVD I can get somewhere, it's free, someone's giving it away, you can have it, whatever. That sort of thing. I ended up finding a copy of this, the original DVD copy in the bus shelter, in the bus stop or bus shelter, what you call it, and got home, and it didn't have the original film in, what it had was it had one of the original Richard Roundtree films. I think it was the film when Shaft goes to Africa, and that one, and bloody Sherlock DVD, for God's sakes. And I'm talking about the Stephen Moffat Sherlock. Um, Made a comeback, man, Freeman. I think it was basically, I think it was the third episode of the first series. And I thought, oh, for God's sakes, really. I didn't want Sherlock in my life, and I ended up getting a bloody DVD copy of it, within a Shaft film, in a Shaft DVD case. Fuck me. But I still have it somewhere anyway. It's still have it at home, I do. But I ended up going to HMV and I actually ended up finding this in the shelves, really. So it's like, oh, good. It was cheap anyway because it was low price anyway. So I ended up watching it. I ended up enjoying it, I did. So revisiting this film has actually been pretty good, indeed. So I thought it was pretty interesting stuff to get down, really. Definitely worth seeking out, actually. I think Sam Jackson's pretty good, really. 51st Stage is one of my favourite films of all time, which she did straight after, I think after this film, the year after the film of Shaft, really. But obviously, he's sort of steady doing, still doing work, really. Indeed. And some of them are going off to do bigger things, really, of course. Again, like Christian Bale, Jeffrey Wright, of course. And Buster Rhymes facing against Michael Myers in bloody Halloween Resurrection. Fucking hell. There we go. There we go, Shaft. Pretty good, actually. So it's definitely worth seeing. That's 22 years old. 22 years old. Fucking hell. So there we go. So that's from 2000. That's number 10. Number 11. So we skip from 2000 to 2014. And we've got Love and Mercy. This is a biopic about Brian Wilson, leading member of the Beach Boys. Focuses on two aspects of his life, really. You've got the 1960s period when he's in the Beach Boys, doing Pet Sounds and Smile, taking LSD, that type of thing, of course, and makes him go do that and goes up his own ass, really, and psychologically. And of course, any cuts to the 1980s when he's under the 24 recuperation thing with Eugene Landy, being medicated every single day, being drugged up, everything else, and being separated from his family. Basically, Landy keeping him as a prisoner, really. And yeah, it's a bit of a. You watch this film, it's a bit of a sad, a bit of a brutal watch for, especially in the 1980s, really, for the 80s period of Brian Wilson, really. But yeah, I watched this yesterday, actually, along with Big Trouble in Little China. I did, and I watched this first, actually, and I thought, I might give this a watch. And it's like, I'm glad I did, actually. Start with this film. It's quite a bit depressing. It's a bit, so you got Paul Dano as Brian Wilson in the 1960s, of course. So with his hair, he delivers it. I love his performance as Brian Wilson. He has that sort of goofiness he does, and I think sort of Brian does have that in the 60s. If you look at pictures and footage, of course, indeed he has that sort of childlike goofiness to him, really, and Dano captures that wonderfully, like a young genius as well, indeed. And that works perfectly. His performance as well, it sort of works, and you really get into the mind of Brian Wilson as well in some places. Like that scene when he's Good Vibrations is become a big hit, of course, and when they celebrate, and there's all the clanking with the plates and everything else, and he just like no, I can't take this, really. Like, he's got this sound of music in his head, really, and clanging and everything else that really that disrupts him, really, and that sort of thing. It's like, does that really? You've also got the whole stuff with Michael as well, his cousin, or the main sort of the singer in the Beach Boys. And you look at the performance of Jacob Abel, is his name is. And you see like the bit of and you have that sort of frustration with him with the whole thing with Pet Sounds, of course. Like, why did you leave that in? It should be like what it used to be with hits and everything else, like the whole stick to formula thing, which obviously Mike Love does, but which, if you look at results like Summer in Paradise, fucking hell, I really, like, try and do something, try and be be of the time of the Beach Boys and be a Republican and a ladies' man. If you look at Michael Owen, like it's a bit of an opposing factor to the Beach Boys' history, alongside Murray Head, which you look into this film, of course, and it's like, I think that there's like a scene. It's like, like Brian shows him God Only Knows, and he's like, I don't feel it. I don't feel what you've got in your head really, but it's just a song. It is, and that's the whole thing. And it's the same when he was doing Pet Sounds, of course. It's like, I've got a new band. It's like, that should be the next thing. That should be the next. Listen to my record, Brian. That sort of thing. It's like, being imposing. It's like when Brian sort of like, he looks into his dad as like the main inspiration. Like, his main inspiration, but you've also got that sort of abusiveness as well. That sort of creeps in. Not well. You get one scene, of course, like in a flashback scene, of course, like if flashes before your life, that type of thing, and the young Brian Wilson gets slapped back of his head or whatever by his father. But it doesn't you only see that like a little second, like a couple of seconds, like briefly, like a flashback type thing. That's about it, really. Indeed, and yes, but it's interesting, really. Also, it's interesting, seeing like people recreating, trying to replicate this whole feel, of course, of the '60s, which they did like 60mm cameras. Also, the feel of like using the wrecking crew, members of the wrecking crew, to do pet sounds as well. That's pretty good stuff. That's really interesting. They filmed in the same studios as well. The Beach Boys did back in the '60s. That's pretty good stuff. But I think the thing that really makes me interested in the film, of course, is stuff of the 1980s with John Cusack, as Brian was in the 80s, really, but he's medicated and everything else. The 80s stuff. Still, the Brian Wilson in the 1980s is probably the highlight for me in this film, really. It's interesting with the 60s stuff, with the pet sounds. Obviously, you get that sort of feeling, of course, with Brian having a panic attack and everything else, really. But when it gets to the 1980s, it's more interesting, really, for me. Cusack plays it more. Again, he's more. Let's say, he has a distinct quality to it, really, with how he brings to the performance of Brian in the 80s. You've all, when, that sort of thing. When you first see him in the Cadillac showroom when he meets Belinda for the first time, and also it's like, can we like lock the door, of course, and it feels like he keeps quiet, and he talks about talking about his brother Dennis dying, drowning a couple of years back. Maybe 2 years actually, because that's 1985. They meet her, actually, yeah. And also, writing, and also he leaves a little note in there. It's like, I want, and say, like, it's a feeling for him, like he's, I want this car, this very car, or the full model, yeah, this car, very much. And writes a note like he's scared, he's frightened, and everything else. When she finds a note, I think in the glove box or something like that, and obviously she gets, obviously meets Brown, of course, they end up going dates, of course, really getting to know each other, but she sees the ugly truth with the whole thing with Landy, really, and his entourage, really, especially Landy, played by Paul Giamatti, who wearing a wig, of course, but Jesus Christ, Paul Giamatti as Landy, fucking hell, jeez, he can come as like a sinister man, really. I think Landy in real life, was more sinister than Giamatti portrayed him, really. So I think in interviews, of course, Wilson and Ledbetter, of course, mentioned, what was on screen, what was projected, of course, what Giamatti portrayed Landy. Landy did much worse with Brian than shown on screen. There'd probably be some of the stuff, obviously you get the whole stuff with, it starts off innocently, of course, and but you get a whole, you sort of get it right away, of course, like he's really protecting Brian away from it, like from Ledbetter, from Melinda. When they go into the concert, it's like when she sort of talks to me, it's like, I really like this song. It's quite nice. Yeah, it's nice. And he just turns to her. It's like, what do you say, Brian? It's like, you know, I just said like what the song's like, of course. Okay. Like really protecting. And it's when you get to that scene with the barbecue, when they're having burgers, like like Brian saying, Eugene, I'm hungry, and that sort of thing. And he said, you have to wait, really. And also he gives it to Melinda, of course, and he starts, like, oh, let me show you this, like, no. That sort of thing, like, really, he's really someplace, that sort of thing. And Brian nicks the burger, obviously nicks Melinda's burger because he's hungry, and he snaps and shouts, really, like that, really, and just rips this burger out of his hand. It's like, no, you're not hungry. You are not hungry. It's like that, really. It's like, mm, and she starts to see Landy's, his personality with what he's been doing, Brian, and it goes on more worse, really. You have the whole thing, of course, saying that he's a paranoid schizophrenic. He must be medicated 24 hours a day. He must be under my care, really. And if you want to take a date, if he calls and wants their date, fine, but you have to ring me straight away, of course. And once you've finished, I want you to tell me what it was like, what his moods were like, what did you do, what really happened, like proper stuff, really. Like that's like proper securitized stuff, that really, you know, deep stuff in a way. Obviously, comes to the point. Also, with the moments of freedom, of course, when she had it with Brian, of course. The whole thing, the sailboat, of course, and actually going back to his little house, his little place, really, that he was staying, really. And obviously, when night falls, he ends up in the panic. It's like, they'll be coming, that sort of thing, of course. And ends up in this weird little panic, And obviously, with John Cusack's performance, there's this vulnerable feel about it, of course, in the performance of Brian, in his version of Brian. And it's, that's the thing. It's like the thing, like he's told what to do. He's like a dog, really. In some places, like yes, you Dean, of course. And it's like you can't escape this, really. Obviously, being underneath medication, it's like and she really, and it's that point when it's like after the sailboat fails, so they had that passion, really, that type of passion, and obviously flip switch, like they're coming, you must leave, of course. And she finds out, he's been drugging you, he's been medicating you all the time. He's manipulating you. That sort of thing. It's like, and it, but it's like not bringing out as much. It's like, and you basically see that, of course, and you see that scene, and she walks past the camera, of course, and it's like, you see that look on her. It's like, she knows the truth. She knows what's going. She coins on what's going on. And you see John Cusack going back and forth, of course, and nervously waiting for Landy's bleak entourage to come back, or his goons to medicate him up again. Oh, it's quite tough to watch, really. If you're familiar with the Beach Boys and Brian Wilson and whatnot, it's like, but if you see watching this dramatising films and what the performances they're doing, especially John Cusack, really, it's quite sad, really, what was really going on in the 80s with Brian Wilson, what Landy was doing to him, really. So, and also you get other stuff like the whole thing with Gloria, who actually then the film they became good friends, of course. Like she sort of knew what was going on as well, really, of course. Like she was the housekeeper, she saw the cook, our pair type stuff, really. For Brian, I think for me, for Landy as well, really. But she basically tells Belinda what's been going on. Of course, the whole medication, this big jar of pills that is going on. It's like, God. And you get the whole, and you get this like off shouting thing. You hear Giamatti as Landy shout, very much like they were doing like I saw the beginning of the work on the Brian Wilson '98 album. They were, of course, and you see that scene. And she looks at and you see like shout away. It's like work on the song for this film, of course, like proper shouting, like manic shouting with the producers, which apparently is a thing which was going on, really. Like people like Russell Time and Jeff Lynne who worked on the album had a tough time with Landy, really more so, really, like with his interference, everything else. It was like you know, really just like touching on very authoritative, really just like in your face type stuff, you know, just like, God, that type of stuff. And obviously, um, yeah, and obviously, Murder walks in, of course. I think she's given something. Not sure wasn't in the paperback, though. I never really paid attention to that, really. Like, she looks at Brian, sitting at the piano. He's just like, out of it, really. Like, he's just completely drained everything else. It's really just like, and she knows it, really. And then and obviously, she gets the payback, really. She finds paperwork, of course, belonging to him, like the Will and Testament, really. And that's all what it is. I'll briefly go through this. Matches are getting low, actually. Briefly getting low. I have to say, really good film, fantastic and good stuff. And yeah, I'll try and briefly skim through this now. I just realised the battery's getting low. It's got a notification now. So there we go. So that's Love and Mercy. I really do think it's worth checking out. The 1980s stuff with Brian Wilson, John Cusack, and Elizabeth Banks. Fantastic performance by Angel, Paul Giamatti. Really good stuff. The penultimate one, number 12, is Shazam, 2018. One of my only films from the DC universe I ever saw. Really good fun stuff. I think it's really funny. It's one of the best ones out that come out, really, of the DC universe, along with another film I'll probably mention in the next special. Zachary Quinto, really good stuff. Same with the guy who plays Billy as well. Really good stuff. Asher Angel, that's it. Billy Batson. You know, Mark Strong as Thaddeus Simmons as well. Really good stuff. Fantastic. Really good film, actually. I really enjoyed. Very funny as well. It's got that light-hearted element. To do with foster care and everything else, it works nicely. It does. Fantastic. And yes, indeed. I really enjoyed it, actually. I thought it was pretty good stuff, really. Funny. Quinto really gets the comedy stuff, really brings out, of course. And yeah, I'm interested to see what might come out next. They're doing the Black Adam film with Dwayne Johnson next, so who knows? But we'll see what the DC universe goes on from, really. So that's briefly say it's a good film. I can't really say much about it, really, but there we go. Fun, good stuff. And finally, for number 13, of course, we end off with 2019, which is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Tarantino's penultimate film, because it's his ninth film. One of the films I saw in 2019, along with Hobbs and Shaw and Joker. Hobbs and Shaw I did review. It's not really a bit of a rubbish film, really, to be honest. That's popcorn filler with Jason Statham and Dwayne Johnson. I would say it's better than the Fast and Furious sequels from 8 onwards, really. So out of that sort of period, really, post Paul Walker, it's all right. Then I've got Joker, which I reviewed on the channel, and then we've got Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Tarantino's homage to late 1960s, the end of that's all like the golden age of Hollywood in 1969. Caprio, Brit, fantastic, really good performance by them. Like his main actor is the relationship between an actor and his stunt double, really good stuff, fantastic. You've also got the whole thing of the Manson murders included, more into it. Not as much, really, of course, but it's mainly focused on DiCaprio and Pitt, really. With Al Pacino as well, really, about their relationship, which is fantastic. Margot Robbie's performance of Sharon Tate, it's okay, but it's not, I don't know. She's got a good natural presence, really, but there's not much to it, really. I thought there'd be a little bit more interesting stuff. I thought they'd actually go full on, do the whole Manson Tate murder stuff, really. I thought that'd be interesting. You know, but it ends up flipped on its head and has a massive fight because the bloody murderers, his assailants, comes to their own bloody house, really. That's a twist. And so he ends up as this weird, funny, twist fairy tale at the end thing, really. But it's really good. Fantastic. Also, when I first knew about the film, really, people, there was something that mentioned that, Brad Pitt dies at the end of the film, which that was never the case, really. When you watch the film, it's like, oh, he lives. He just goes in the ambulance and he's like, where is it? And it's like, oh, I'm fine. Okay. Whereas I read somewhere, I think on Wikipedia or something like that, of course, they said, oh, he gets killed. Like he dies or someone dies in a pool or something, I don't know. When he's taking the members of the Manson family, I don't know. But I enjoyed it for what it's worth, because it was one of my anticipated films for 2019. The other two films, I just came along with it. But this film I was really interested in seeing cinemas, really. So there we go. It's on Netflix anyway. I can probably still watch it at some point still. The soundtrack's really good. I've got the soundtrack on the limited edition version of that with the orange vinyl as well. Really good soundtrack. Good stuff on it, actually. you know, good mixture of music. Tarantino definitely goes to the park with some of the soundtracks he chooses. Um, and yeah, I just really enjoyed the overall feel of it. Really good cast. They should have done more with Manson, I would say. He's in it briefly, really, but they should have done more with him, I think. It sort of alludes to it, really, but I thought they'd done more with Manson in this film, really. But also, I don't know, really. They might have explained more with the novelization that Tarantino did last year as well, actually. He novel he novelized the film. It's in print now. I think that's the first time he's actually done with one of his films. Really, he's novelized into book form. So there we go. But that's probably worth checking out. Actually, I don't know. I think it's mentioned like he's expanded more on stuff as well. Really. So I don't know if Manson's more included in the novel than the film. I don't know. Who knows? Really, but really good stuff. I thought it was a really good time. It was a bit of an interesting kind because people were drinking, smoking the bloody cinema they were when I went. But I enjoyed it for what it was worth. Fantastic. I still got the ticket actually. I still got the ticket I do when I went. So there we go. I'm not going to show it because the battery's running low on this thing. So that's it. That's my reviews. That's the 20. That's what the specials done. So that's basically like a basic review of like 13 random films between 1980 and 2019. So there we go. So thank you for watching, guys, and I'll see you for the next special, which will come out whenever, really. Who knows? But I'll see you then. See you later, guys.